What's going on, everybody? Welcome into our members-only Q&A here on the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Thanks so much for being here. Always appreciate you guys being members. Always appreciate the great questions that you guys have. I'm not going to mess around today. It looks like there's already, I don't know, about 1,000 questions in the chat. So I'm going to kick things off right away, get things started right away, and not waste a single moment. So Josh starts off. Oh, I have the wrong banner up. I don't know if I can change it still or not. Oh, I can. All right, that's much better. Josh starts, really like Golden's ability to fight back to the ball and deep balls. Going to come in handy with Jordan. Yeah, I mean, here's one thing I'll say about Jordan just really quick that I think, unfortunately, we really missed out on last year. Jordan clearly last offseason made a concerted effort to really focus on his deep ball and really make it so that it was something that was a strength of his. And in training camp, it was gorgeous. If you remember, preseason game, he had 3 plays, right? If you remember, deep down the right sideline, just beautiful golden arcing ball right into the hands of Wicks. Was it Wicks? Either way, just perfect deep ball throw. He had it. It was there. He had literally found it. And then the MCL happens, and then the groin happens, and then the thumb happens. And you could just tell, like, everything he didn't have the practice time, wasn't able to go through the reps, and I'm sure was not feeling himself, and everything mechanically just kind of not went out the window, but it just wasn't the same for Jordan due to injury, not due to lack of effort or wanting to try or anything like that, or ability, just injury. If he can get that back and continue to work on that, I mean, I'm telling you guys, it was the talk of training camp. It was gorgeous. And then again, we saw it in that preseason game as well. So it looks really, really good. I'm hoping he can get it back. But yeah, I mean, any receiver being able to work back to the ball, any receiver having that ability is going to be super important. But I have a lot of faith in Jordan's deep ball moving forward. And hopefully that when he's healthy this year, we see that deep ball pick up right where it left off prior to the injuries last season. Let's get to the super chats really quick. Mike, with the addition of these rookies on offense, how much do you think it improves Green Bay's offense for 2025? Well, Mike, these are, when it comes to rookies, it's always a little bit TBD, right? You look at a lot of these different players through the course, in last year you had Edgerrin Cooper really help out starting about midway. Evan Williams was ready to go right away. And then, Javon Bullard played a lot, but you could tell there was a lot of ups and downs with that. Those were basically your 3 contributors last year: Bullard, Cooper, and Evan Williams. So I was out of, what do they have? Like 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. So 3 of the 11 had a legitimate impact. And one of those wasn't really until halfway through the season. And the other one was a kind of a little bit of a roller coaster ride, right? The year before that, Jaden Reed made an impact right away. Kraft made an impact right away. Wicks made an impact right away. Brooks made an impact right away. Anders Carlson made a bad impact right away. Carrington Valentine had a little bit towards the end of that year, but you had a handful. Quay and Wyatt. Quay started right away. Wyatt was a rotational player. Watson made an impact pretty much right away, especially once he got off the injuries. Sean Ryan took a couple years. Doubs mostly made an impact right away. Remember, even Zach Tom, he made a couple spot start / moments here and there, but for the most part, he was not their preferred guy in that season. And Igbare was kind of the last piece of the rotation. Walker didn't really play that year. Stokes, the year before that, played right away. Myers played right away. Newman actually played right away in 2021 as a starter. So you had 3 guys from that class. Love didn't. Dillon played a little bit. DeGuara played a little bit. Kamal Martin played way too much. Those are kind of, so you usually get, long story short here, you usually get about 3 guys and you get varying results from your rookie class. So whether or not that's Matthew Golden, whether that's Anthony Belton, whether that's Savion Williams, who knows? I don't think it's going to be John Williams, but certainly crazier things have happened. But they have 4 players on offense. 3 of their first 3 picks were offense. And I'm hopeful that they have players that can come in and contribute right away. But I usually say, let's take a little bit of a wait and see approach till they get these guys in here and see what they can accomplish. Now, with that being said, what I do think this offseason has accomplished, the draft, and then obviously adding Aaron Banks, to some lesser extent, McCole Hardman, but Matt LaFleur has every sort of piece that he needs. He has all different flavors of wide receiver, 2 very distinct types of tight ends, all different kinds of running backs, including an Alpha and Josh Jacobs, all different flavors of offensive linemen, even some maulers, some more, pass protecting, lighter guys. He's got everything, and then of course a very talented quarterback. There should not be anything that Matt would have to go to to Brian Gutekunst for and say like, hey, we don't have this. Outside of maybe a blocking tight end, that would be probably the closest thing that you could come to being like, hey, we don't have this specific flavor of something. Outside of that, they kind of have everything. So now it's up to Matt to just go to work and figure out how he can put all these pieces together and make it the most successful offense possible. And like I said, I have a lot of faith in Matt, a lot of faith in Jordan that they can go out and do that. But I do think adding these pieces is going to make them even more difficult to sort of guard against and give them some real fun weapons on this offense. What's good, Andy? No question, a declaration. Green Bay special teams will finish top 10 DVOA. Curse ends this season. RJ, speaking into existence, my friend. I will more than take that. You know my special teams mantra, just 16th. That's all I need is 16th. Doesn't need to ever be better. Doesn't ever need to be worse. Just give me the 16th special teams. That's all I ever ask for. I just don't. I want the most nondescript. Don't care about it. I don't want to think about special teams. I don't want to have to worry about it. I just want it to exist. It's fine that it exists, but I don't want to have it. I don't need it to alter the game in a good way. I just don't want it to alter the game in a bad way. I want this to be decided on offense and defense. If you can give me a game that is decided on offense and defense, I will take that every time. But hey, if you want to give me a top 10 DVOA special teams, I would gladly sign up for that and take it in a millisecond. Compare Colin Oliver to Azeez Ojulari, Jalon Walker, Brenton Cox, and Zach Bond. All pretty much same size. What makes Colin different than Azeez? Will he just be a pass rusher? I'd have to go and watch some serious tape on some of these guys to be able to speak to them a little bit better. Jalon Walker, I think, has the ability legitimately to be like, I'm interested. I'm assuming Atlanta's going to use him as a edge rusher. I'm assuming that's where he was drafted, but I mean, he legitimately can be a really good off-ball linebacker. But that's one that I think has a lot more just juice and physicality that he can play both. Fun player. I think a lot of people are like, wow, he fell to 15. I always thought that was a little bit more of his range. I liked a lot of the other, if you are going to go with pass rushers, I like pretty much all the pass rushers kind of better than Jalen Walker, but very talented football player. I think Atlanta got a very nice player there. Brenton Cox, I'm surprised actually. Is that true that they're the same size? Because they don't feel like the same size at all. So let me see here. I'm very curious on this now. Let's see. So you have Oliver or Cox is, let's start with him, is 6'4", 250. Isn't Oliver like 6'2"? What is Oliver? 6'2", 240. Yeah. So first of all, those 2 inches matter a lot. And those 10 pounds matter a lot. So it may not sound like it, but that's pretty significant. And Cox is just a more powerful player. If you look, he can't bend or has that acceleration that Oliver has, but Cox is more powerful and is more heavy-handed and is going to be able to hold up at the point of attack a little bit better as well. That also might seem like a little bit of a low weight for Brenton Cox. I bet he actually weighs a little bit more than that now. Zach Bond was always sort of going to be an off-ball linebacker from an NFL standpoint. Don't think anyone ever really gave him a ton of a chance to be an edge rusher. He did it at Wisconsin, obviously, but he was more of, again, your true transition to off-ball linebacker. It took some time, clearly. Saints, it didn't really work out great. Philly, it worked out phenomenally. What a find he was this last year for them. But again, you could see the transition for Oliver there, but Bond was definitely more always going to make that transition, where Oliver was going to be somebody that bent the edge a little bit more and was probably more of a pass rusher. Ojulari, like I said, I have to go back and watch a little bit more. It's been a hot second since I've watched took a deep dive on Ojulari. I watched him a little bit when I was looking at him as a potential pass rush option this offseason, but I'd have to go back and study his game just a little bit more. But I think, to me, how you could potentially use Oliver if you wanted to get the most out of him. If Oliver is going to play any sort of linebacker, it's going to be as a strong side linebacker only, and it's going to be in 4-3 only. And you're not going to see him in any nickel packages. You're not going to see him really bounce back in coverage unless in a 4-3. You kind of have to in that situation if they go back to throw the ball. But he's going to be used more in rundowns as a strong side linebacker, more kind of taking on blocks or trying to stop the run in that situation. But probably more of a designated pass rush specialist, and then probably somebody that Rich Bisaccia is pretty excited about having on the roster as well as a potential special teams guy in a couple different units. So I think that's how you can maybe get him to, a few more snaps, but he's going to be behind a lot of people at off-ball linebacker before you would get to him. And so for that reason, I think you start him off as a situational pass rusher, 10 to 12 snaps per game with some special teams value. If you look at, why can't I think of his name? Not Brenton Cox, the other defensive end. who's Aaron Mosby. If you look at Mosby this past year, I bet Mosby played, I don't know, 150 snaps, somewhere like that. Aaron Mosby played 150 exactly, literally 150 on the nose. That is insane, but 150 on the nose. And so you're looking at, about 10 per game, right? And it didn't equate to that. He had a couple games of 20, a lot of games that he didn't play. In fact, he didn't play until week 8. So you can kind of tell, like, he started, in fact, in week 18 against Chicago. Well, that was kind of a preseason-ish game, but he played 33 in that game. But, probably about 10 to 12 snaps per game if he would have played the full season. And to me, Oliver has a much better chance to be a much better pass rusher. And I think actually Oliver can be the better special teams player as well. So you're kind of looking at a upgraded Aaron Mosby in this situation. Why didn't they sign, in your opinion, Aziz for only $4 million? I just don't think there was much there, to be honest. It's fine. Philly, it's a smart, sort of low risk, some more reward sort of signing. But when I have watched him, I haven't been impressed with what he's done. He's not really a great run defender. He hasn't been any sort of consistent pass rusher. For me, I've said all along, if I was Green Bay, I would much rather invest those snaps that you give Ojulari to Brenton Cox and now to their 2 rookie edge defenders, because I knew they were going to go out and get, in all likelihood, an edge defender, even 2 in some way, plus LVN. Like, I want all of those Ojulari snaps that you would potentially, like, right now, you don't even have anywhere to play him. If right now, with adding 2 more edge rushers, Goody would probably be regretting giving him a $4 million deal and be like, now what the heck do we do with this guy? Because we don't really have a spot for him. So knowing that you have some of these younger guys like LVN, Cox, and Egbari, and 2 rookies that need some playing time, there just wasn't going to be a spot for him. And that I would much rather have those younger guys get those snaps than give them to Ojulari in that situation. Looking at Isaiah Simmons' PFF coverage grades, they're better than McDuffie's. McDuffie is better at playing the run. Would they play 1 early downs and Simmons on pass downs? Well, there's a possibility of that, Spider Monkeys, but a couple things. One, let's wait to see what the contract looks like for Simmons, because unless it's out, I haven't had a chance to look at it too much today. Doesn't look like it's out yet. So let's see if it's a contract where he's like guaranteed to make the team, then the conversation changes, but he's probably going to have to be somebody that is going to have to make the team first. Let's assume he does make the team. Then I do think that you're probably looking at Simmons being used more as a off-ball linebacker in some of those nickel situations. If one of the top guys goes down, and, or, maybe some spy situations, whatever you kind of want to use him as. And no, I don't expect him to play a ton in sort of those 4-3 defenses, unless, again, Cooper or Walker are out injured. So McDuffie's probably your third linebacker in base. Then we'll see what Hopper can be in year 2, if he can take any sort of jump. But if you are going to use Simmons out on the field, probably more in nickel situations if there are injuries, and then use him as more of a cover spy blitz guy than as any sort of real run defender. Jim, thank you for the chat or the question. What's your best case scenario for comp picks next year? Seems like they will let Walker, Ryan, Doubs, Watson, and Egbari walk. Should we trade someone for a corner this year and still get 4 comp picks? Well, it depends, because remember, comp picks cancel out. And if that happens, like if you want to go sign somebody, you might say, well, we've got 5 guys that are going to sign elsewhere, so we can now sign a guy and still get 4 comp picks. There could be a little bit of an evening out there. I always am hesitant to make any decisions necessarily just based on comp picks. I think it's best to make the decision that's best for your team and then factor in comp picks into the background as you're kind of making that decision. But I wouldn't make decisions specifically for comp picks, meaning, yeah, be aware of it, be cognizant of it. But if you feel like trading one of those players is in the best interest of your team right now, also, I don't see, Rasheed Walker. Okay, I thought you were thinking Quay Walker. No, Rasheed will probably be gone. But if it's in the best interest of your team to trade one of them away, awesome, do that. Get whatever you can in return and then make that decision on its own volition. But I wouldn't do it just so, like, well, we're going to have too many comp picks or whatever. Let that happen when it happens. And then the other thing too is, like, you can get into some weird scenarios where, let's say all 5 of those players do sign with another team and you're thinking, oh, good, we've got, or there's potential of 5, but we signed somebody. All of a sudden, Egbari gets cut before the start of the season, and now you no longer get that comp pick. So there's definitely a lot that goes into the calculus. So I would definitely more make it of, like, be aware of how it affects. There's been teams that have thrown away like 3rd or 4th round comp picks on the dumbest decisions you could possibly make because they just weren't even paying attention to it, which is GM malpractice, but it's legitimately happened. It's so dumb. So be aware of it, but don't let it gauge your overarching decisions. Kind of let those come to you as is. And like I said, if they feel like trading one of those, then go for it, but don't just do it based on comp picks. And again, if all 5 do walk, then and all of a sudden you want to sign a free agent. Now 2 of those cancels out one or the other. You still get 4 comp picks. As far as like best case, Walker's probably a 4th. Ryan's probably a 4th or 5th. Doubs probably a 5th. I mean, Watson just depends on like what sort of year he has this year of what type of deal, but 4th or 5th, maybe even a 6th, depending on what he gets. And then Enagbare probably like a 7th, 6th or 7th, somewhere in there. Those would be the guesses. So maybe in a really crazy best case world, maybe you could work it up to like 4 4th round picks, but probably more like 2 4ths, 2 5ths, something like that, or a 4th and 3 5ths. Will Ross said that Sorrell's ceiling could be Za'Darius if he was a good athlete, which I loved. Do you think Hafley is enough of a madman to try Cooper, Gary, Sorrell, and Oliver on a few passing downs? 1,000,000%. Absolutely. Could easily see something like that. Now, those 4 are going to, well, actually, I take that back. I didn't see that you put Cooper in there. My apologies. I could see them do some twists and stunts with those players. I don't know that Cooper will necessarily be lined up as edge, but yeah, you could try some stuff like that. And I think the first thing is that some of those guys like Sorrell and Oliver, they're going to have to prove it, right? That you want them in there over a Devontae Wyatt or over somebody like that. But yeah, I think you could definitely see Jeff Hafley be a madman with some of these combinations that he could use up front. And it should be very, very fun to watch. Fingers crossed. If he did, how many O-linemen would instantly retire out of sheer frustration? It'd be a very fast lineup. Very fast lineup. Could be very fun. I'd be more than interested in seeing it tried out. All right. Thought it was going to be tough to draft a quarterback this year with 8 picks. What do you think of either Kenny Pickett or Tommy DeVito as QB3? Both seem to be the odd man out in Cleveland and or New York. DeVito I'd be less interested in, but I wouldn't necessarily hate it. Pickett, if you wanted to bring him in as a developmental number 3, I guess it would probably depend most on which one I could get on the practice squad. If I felt like I could get one of those guys on the practice squad, I would do it. And that would probably be after the cut downs are done. And then they go to another team and they sign to their practice squad. And then you take that player instead of Sean Clifford in that example. Probably go into this season with, obviously Jordan and then Malik Willis as the backup. And then if you could get Pickett as a practice squad guy, which I think is probably unlikely, but if you could do that, I would take it and see if you could develop into somebody that could be your backup in 2026. But if you get a chance at either of those guys in the practice squad, I'd be all for it. Mike, good to see you. Jaire is still on the roster. I consider myself somewhat competent in understanding the salary cap. He's currently on the books now. And we still have 32 million cap space. Moving him frees up 7.5 million, and we have 17 mil dead cap this season. Next season, we would just cut him and free up 17 million in cap space with 9 million dead money for 2026. Doesn't seem like much of a savings dump now. I don't know if these are separate questions. Okay, we could trade Doubs and cut Kingsley to make up that difference to cover Jaire's portion of the salary cap. That wouldn't be dead money. I do not want him on the roster, but releasing him seems futile. Okay, then we get to a second question. Mike, your salary cap math is, for the most part, I think in the right realm there, but it's the wrong way of looking at it. Okay, all of the dead cap stuff, all of that is signing bonus. Okay, signing bonus is already paid for. They've given that cash to Jaire, and that's going to count against the salary cap at some point, no matter what. You can't stop it. You can't contain it. It's going to happen. Whether that counts against the cap this year, next year, the following year, for Green Bay's purposes, it doesn't matter. They can maneuver anything that they want to maneuver around. That does not matter one iota. Okay. So that's done, paid for, over with. The dead cap hits that you're looking at, that's all great and wonderful. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. If they were in a salary cap hell, it would matter more, but they're not. As you mentioned, they have plenty of salary cap space. Okay. So put that aside. Jaire has what amounts to 2 team options. Okay. If he were to play this season, his base salary plus potential bonuses would equal to $17.5 million. All this, don't look at the signing bonuses. Look away. Don't need to see it anymore. It's done. It's dead. It's over. Okay. 17.5 million in base salary plus the potential bonuses that he could earn in workout bonuses and per game bonuses. Okay. 17.5 million. If you release him, you save all of that 17.5 million plus the 19.5 million that he's due next year. You save all of that. Okay. But for this year's purposes, it's a 1-year team option. And the way you need to look at it is, would you sign Jaire Alexander to a 1-year, $17.5 million deal? If your answer is yes, then you have no issues, assuming that there's no off-field concerns or any concerns like that. But that is the question. You will pay him an additional $17.5 million that will come out of the salary cap. End of story, period. No questions asked, if you keep him for one more season. So don't look at the other salary cap mechanisms. Your only decision making that you need to make is, and again, how much they would save on this year's cap is true, but then they save more on next year's cap. So it all equates the same. You're signing them basically to a 1-year, $17.5 million deal by keeping them this year. And you're paying them in hard, cold cash an additional $17.5 million. Okay. So you have that option this year. If you keep them this year on that deal, all well and good. You can do that. No problem. They have the money. That's not a concern. Then next year, you have another 1-year team option for $19.5 million. Same exact situation and scenario. If he's gone, you don't pay him the $19.5 million. If you take him for another season, you pay him $19.5 million. That's all there is to it. So you have 2 1-year team options is exactly what this amounts to. You can cut him at any time this year, and you save the 17.5 this year. You save the 19.5 next year. You don't have to pay him a single ounce of it. If he's on the contract this year, if he plays this year, it's at 17.5. And then you can make that decision next year. If you continue the 2 years of the contract, it's 17.5 more this year and 19.5 million more next year. That is the only way that you need to look at it. All the other stuff is bells and whistles and smoke and mirrors. It ultimately does not matter. So that's the only way that you need to look at it. And for me and for the Packers, the 17.5 million is a tough pill to swallow based on his current playing time. If he does come back, which again, of course, Rob Domofsky reported that there seems to be more opportunity now for that to happen. The reason that they're not discussing of like, oh, how are we going to play you this year? Or like, hey, let's just shake hands and hug and, we're good to go. This is all money related. Because I've been wrong in this situation potentially already. So I'll take any L's that I need to take on it. But the most stunned that I would be is if they bring him back and just everything is the exact same on his current contract as is. That would be probably the most that I would be completely shocked of this entire scenario. Can you work out a middle ground? Absolutely. You probably could. But taking him back on the contract as is, I don't see happening. So again, ignore all the other stuff. Just know you're going to pay $17.5 million more dollars if he's on the team this year. And then $19.5 million more if he's on the team next year. Second question is wide receiver room. Peter on his pod implied that Hardman wouldn't make the roster. Just think having a 3-time Super Bowl champ on the team is in whatever role seems like a benefit, unless he is Kadarius Toney bad. This is just a pure competition and camp thing. I wouldn't say he's not going to make the team. I would say that he is behind the 8 ball in a couple different ways. So you have 5 guys that are going to make the team, okay? In your 2 rookies, and then Wicks, Reed, and Doubs. Unless there's a trade in some way that we don't see coming. If it is, I would assume it would be Doubs. But unless there's some sort of trade that happens, I would assume that those 5 are going to make the team for sure. That's where you're at right now. They're probably going to keep 1 more. You have Bo Melton, Malik Heath, and Mecole Hardman. And you can make an argument for either of them. Malik Heath is probably a little bit different than kind of what you have on the roster, a true, outside, more physical wide receiver, possession wide receiver that also is a really good blocker. Bo Melton might be the best actual receiver of that group, but he's a bit redundant to what you already have. Primarily would like to play in the slot, be a little bit more of a gadget guy, and they have a lot of those on the roster already. Plus, Melton has a little bit of special teams value, but not a ton. Hardman is primarily going to be a slot wide receiver that can play a little bit on the outside, a little bit more of a gadget guy. But again, they have Jaden Reed already. Now they have Savion Williams. They don't really need that aspect of him. The advantage for Hardman is he can actually be the punt returner if you want him to be. So he has a little bit more special teams added value. And this to me just comes down to, like I said, good, cold, hard competition with those 3 wide receivers. And you have Heath, you have Hardman, you have Melton, and then any other undrafted or, carryover reserve futures, wide receivers on the team like a Julian Hicks, and you let them battle and may the best man win. The other thing that could happen is you could release all of them feeling like, hey, we'll get Melton or Heath or one of these guys back on the practice squad. So we can just release all of them and stack another position elsewhere. The player's probably not going to play anyway. They're probably going to be, deactivated a bunch of times on the active roster. So we'll probably get Heath back in the practice squad and we're cool with that. We don't need Hardman. We don't need Melton. We'll just take Heath back in the practice squad. Or maybe we get Heath and Melton back in the practice squad, and then we feel really good about that. There's a lot of different ways that it could go, but I love the competition in that group. I love the room, and let's see what happens. But I wouldn't say for sure. The one thing, as I mentioned, is that Hardman's got a little bit going against him because he's the oldest and he's the most expensive, and he's on a 1-year deal. No team control after this. It's just that. And the bonus is special teams. The negative is that everything else contractually, age, all of that is working against him. All right, Zachary, I understand if Jaire is in a Packer this coming year, given the missed playing time and the cap that is taken up by someone who isn't out on the field more than half the games. But after not addressing the corner room at all that much in the draft, I really would like a possible resolution. The player can be, when healthy, is elite, and what it does for the rest of the defense is so valuable to the team. Again, I've certainly made that argument as well. I did a whole episode on that. It's not hard to make an argument for bringing Jaire back. There's a lot of different ways that you can view it that it makes sense. If you can find a way to reconcile whatever situation that they're in right now. And I've said it all along. If tomorrow you tell me Jaire is back, other than, again, having maybe some egg on my face from saying 0.01, but I did leave the door open, other than having some egg on my face for that, I'm going to be very excited that he's on the team. It clearly makes the secondary better. And the biggest thing is I'm just going to be hoping and praying he can actually stay healthy for a full season. So that's more of my take. My take all along is I didn't think they were going to do it. And based on Goody, Matt, Jaire, the reports that we got previously from Rob and from Tom Silverstein, all pointed in the exact same direction. Now we have something that points in another direction. So we evolve and we look back and see where was some, maybe things that we could have interpreted differently. But again, I have no issue with him being on the team. My sons both have Jaire Alexander jerseys. It was one of my favorite draft picks ever when they made it. It just comes down to dollars and cents. To me, it's not a personality thing. I don't think that he's like this locker room cancer, like you can't live with him in the locker. Don't see it that way at all. I just think this is clearly get your abacus out and figure out, what are the odds he plays so many games and what is that worth to you? If it's worth $17.5 million, or if you can find a contract that makes sense, awesome. So be it. Then you just fingers crossed he stays healthy this year, because clearly he adds something that they don't have in that secondary. Different take on the Jaire situation. Could it be that the A-Rod situation where he demands to come back, like a Randall Cobb trade? I know Jaire isn't asking to trade for players, just other demands, etc. Thought about that after Rob Domofsky's tweet saying Jaire could be back. I don't think anything like that. I don't think Jaire's in that situation or anything like that. So no, I think this is, I laid this out on the Bleacher Report show today, and I'll probably talk about this a little bit more on the podcast tomorrow. But there's 3 ways of interpreting this. Okay, 3 different ways that this could have gone as to whether or not this new update from Rob. All right, where there potential to reconcile. Number 1 is the cynic side of things, of saying, all right, this is Green Bay's last gasp at trying to get some team to call and say, okay, we'll give you something for him. They're like, okay, it looks like Green Bay might keep him actually. All right, let's call up the ante and give him a 5th round pick or whatever that might be, or try to drum up some trade interest in it. Or for the team that was going to trade for him, say like, all right, we'll keep him on the contract that he's on. That would be like, you could view it that way, that this is the one last gasp. They're hoping for a team to bite on it. And if they don't, then they're ultimately going to go and release him because they didn't get the trade that they were hoping for. That's one way to interpret it, or one thing that could be happening. The next is that Jaire worked out with Xavier McKinney. He welcomed Nate Hobbs to the team. He, went to the virtual, meetings this past week, and he's been the consummate professional and has carried on like he was supposed to carry on, like he was a Packer all off season long. And Green Bay's looking at it and being like, this doesn't seem so bad. This kind of seems like normal. Like, maybe we can make amends here. Maybe if there was amends to make, maybe this could work. It may be something like that. Maybe there was a kumbaya moment or a galvanizing moment, and things are just coming together, and maybe in a way that neither side really expected, but now both sides are there and feels okay, and they just proceed. The last one, and I think maybe the most likely of the 3, is that you had Jaire come to the real conclusion after teams were not banging down the door to trade for him and willing to give him the contract that he was on, that Jaire and his agent say, hey, actually probably staying in Green Bay with what they're offering is actually the best way for us to get the most amount of money. Like, this is actually probably what's in the best interest of us. And on the flip side, Green Bay looking at the situation and being like, yeah, we got Nate Hobbs, but Stokes is gone. Ballantyne's gone. Rochelle is gone. if Jaire is gone, then Jaire is gone. And all we did was get Nate Hobbs in a 7th round pick. And there's nobody left on the free agent market. There's no draft left. There's no real undrafted free agent that we think is going to come in. Kalen King and Kamal Haddon are not ready for this yet. Oh, crap. And now we need to, and then they realize on their side, actually probably the best thing to do is for us to work out something with Jaire. And these things are both logical. For Jaire, there's a strong chance that his best way to make the most money this season is in Green Bay. And for the Packers, there's a strong chance that their best bet to get a really good player in here and have another talented player in that secondary, somebody that, you know, knows the system and can be arguably their best corner, not arguably their best corner right now is Jaire Alexander. You can get to both of those conclusions very easily. Now, I don't know if they can get it there, but you could understand why maybe both are thinking this through a little bit more as we get closer and closer to the season and being like, this is kind of stupid. It kind of makes sense for both of us. And the way to do that potentially is by coming down on that 17.5 million, but giving Jaire incentives that he can get even maybe above the 17.5 he's supposed to make right now by doing, roster bonuses or things like that, or per game bonuses, I should say. And then what I really love that, forget who it was now, forget who it was that proposed it, but it was really, really smart as well. You had the idea that, it was Wendell Ferreira is who it was, A to Z Sports. You get the idea that the other piece of this is you maybe bring down the money, you give more incentives, but then you also decide to void the final year of the deal. So you void next year. So Ja becomes a free agent at age 29, still prime of his career. So Ja has all this incentives in this contract this year to go out and earn as much as he can by being active for every game. And he's now in a contract year. So if he goes and tears it up, he's going to get a huge payday next offseason at age 29 in the prime of his career from some team still. And if you're the Packers, now you take some of that 17.5 mil away. Maybe it's more likely that he earns 14, 13 mil, whatever it might be. And so there's less risk on their end. For Ja, again, if Ja does play every game, you're fine paying a little bit extra because he played every game. You can pay him a little bit more. Probably means that your defense was really good all season long. And Ja has every right to, again, want to go out and play the best possible because he's going to be a free agent next year to play for that big contract. That to me is a win for all sides. Fans, Jaire, his agent, the Packers, everyone wins in that scenario. So those are the three. It's either a bunch of baloney and they're trying to give one last chance at drumming up trade interest. There was just some sort of like, hey, this kind of feels okay. Let's just continue forward. Or in more likelihood, both sides kind of realized, hey, we're both in kind of a weird situation and a divorce is probably the best way to go. But we've both realized that a divorce is actually worse for both of us right now. So like, let's just keep it together right now. Well, the kids are still in the house and then next year the kids leave and we can divorce next year. Like that could easily be what you're looking at here. So that's my kind of read on it. Great draft by Goody. My biggest issues before the draft, not re-signing Ballantyne was a mistake. You got $425K guaranteed. Some cheap draft insurance that lets you go BPA without sweating corner depth. Well, first of all, John, if your concern was that they weren't going to go BPA without the corner depth, they definitely still went BPA and did not try to stretch for corner because there were some times that they could have done so and they did not. They didn't take a Trey Amos or anything like that. So they certainly did not let it affect them and their draft board in any real way because they didn't take a corner in the 7th round. So they definitely still went BPA. I can understand why they moved on at the time. You know, Ballantyne has his limitations, right? As far as like a number 5 corner, special teams guy that can fill in a pinch, he's fine. But I will promise everyone that Green Bay will not win or lose any more games this season because Corey Ballantyne's no longer on the team. His wins above replacement is very replaceable. To me, that's even a place where like, just go Kamal Haddon or Kalen King at that point. Or, Micah Robinson, whoever. But I can understand the sentiment. And I think they probably should have done a little bit more up until this point. They just didn't. And now they're in a situation where they're going to have to kind of course correct and figure out a way to kind of make that work moving forward. Real talk, I think the Packers are going to need to sign a veteran corner if Jaire doesn't stay healthy. Kendall Fuller, Rasul, Stephon Gilmore, CJ Henderson, Eli Apple. All of those can be a little bit vomit-inducing in your mouth. Here's the thing. I don't know that they need like a starting caliber corner. They need somebody that's in that like number 3 corner range that can also play special teams. And that's a really tough thing to find right now. Because they're not going to find, if they find Jaire, then you just kind of kick Ballantyne a little bit more down the list a little bit. But I don't think any of these players are giving you much more than what Valentine's already giving you. So then you want a number 4 corner that can play corner in a pinch, but can also play teams. None of these guys are the answer to that question. So that's the thin line that you have where there's not really anyone to sign in that role, which is why maybe you look at trades, but trading for a corner is not the easiest thing either because teams usually hold on to them. But let's just see what Goody does. There'll, I'm sure, be someone out there. They didn't have a backup quarterback until basically the weekend before the season began when they traded for Malik Willis. These things can happen throughout the course of the offseason. Fun idea, passing down 3-3-5 with Oliver Quay and edge at linebacker. Who's going to blitz? Someone will, or maybe half drops 8. Yeah, you could do some fun stuff with that. No question. Now, I can tell you that you're bringing Oliver in that situation, right? Because you don't want him dropping into coverage. So I would say more in that situation, if you're going to go a 3-3-5 and obvious passing, you want probably Gary and LVN on the edges with Wyatt as your defensive tackle. Or maybe Gary and Oliver on the edges with Wyatt as your defensive tackle. And then you probably want Quay, Cooper, and Simmons as your 3. And then any of them could drop or any of them could blitz. That would probably be a little bit better. With Oliver, you're just going to expect that he blitzes. And if not, you're happy that he's in coverage because you don't really want him in coverage all that much. Yes, we obviously went over the contract in great detail already, John. I know this was from earlier that you asked the question, but went over that already. Read somewhere that Golden's 0 to 10 yard speed is even more impressive than his 10. Yes, that is correct. I think Packers had their most drops on third down and problems when it was 3rd and 4. Do you see the biggest asset of Golden will be able to move the chains in that situation, or kind of like Devontae Adams did? I see that being Golden's biggest asset, being able to move the chains. They can very much be used in that situation. Red zone as well. He's a very unique piece that can get separation with ease. And yes, you are correct about that 10-yard split where it was the best in the draft of anybody's. And it's kind of a real superpower of his. But yes, you saw there was a 4th down situation against Texas when he was at Houston. It was a 4th and 3, had to have it, and Golden's the go-to. We know obviously the play in the playoffs this past year where it's a 4th and 13 and it's a have to have it and they go to Golden. He definitely has that ability for sure, Spider Monkeys. I'm so happy we got Stackhouse and Simmons. My bet is they both make the roster. The Belton versus Stackhouse one-on-one at practice will feed families and most definitely cause earthquakes. I need to watch more of Stackhouse. I was not thrilled with the tape of what I have watched so far, but I want to watch more before I jump to any conclusions. But, he'll be a fun, training camp sort of piece. I think Ross talked about like TJ Slayton. I would put him more in like that Jonathan Ford category, and Ford never really got an opportunity on the active. Stackhouse could easily be in that sort of situation as well. But again, I want to watch the tape a little bit more of him before I kind of jump to any conclusions. Let me get to Chicken here in just a second. I'm going to selfishly check the Bucs score. So Bucs down by 1 4th quarter in Indiana. All right. 9:14 left. That's where we're at. Can you explain UAF tenders, the one that the Browns gave Elijah Moore? I think so, Chicken, but Green Bay doesn't have anyone really in the situation, so I didn't need to look into it into too great a detail. I believe, and don't quote me on this 1,000%, but I believe what it is. So it's an unrestricted free agent tender. And as some of you may know, this past Monday after the draft was when comp formula no longer counts. If you sign a free agent, they no longer count against the compensatory pick formula. So if you went out and signed Asante Samuel today, that contract would not count against your, compensatory picks. If you put this tender on a player, they will continue to count towards the compensatory selections. However, my read on it is that it is a true unrestricted free agent tender. I believe 1 year, like 3.5 million, something like that. So the player can sign it. So it's not something that you just want to do for anyone. Like, I don't know if the Packers have any remaining free agents. Trying to think. Tyler Davis. So Tyler Davis is a remaining unrestricted free agent, right? You don't want to put it on Tyler Davis. Again, I don't quote me on this 1,000,000%, but I believe because Tyler Davis could sign the tender and be like, yeah, I'll take the $3.5 million deal. You got it. You don't want to do that, obviously. But if there's a player that you think is going to go for more than that, and they're still on the market, you can put that tender on them, and then they would still count towards the compensatory formula. And then you're just hoping that they don't sign that tender unless you're fine with them signing that tender, which the Browns probably would be with Elijah Moore, amongst others that are potentially utilizing that tag. That's my belief as to how it goes. So don't quote me on it 1,000,000,000% because I haven't researched it in a while, but that's my sort of recollection of it. you think the team's reported optimism regarding Jaire played into their draft, or is it more likely that it's the other way around where not getting a corner in draft changes their approach on Ja? I think this one's a little bit almost impossible to say, love in football. Again, we walked through the three scenarios that it could be. It could be a kumbaya moment. It could be all bluff. It could be that Green Bay realized that the best option moving forward is to move forward with Jaire. I'll let you choose your own adventure as to which one of those three that it is. I couldn't tell you for certain, so it would be just me guessing as much as you would be. Can you run through what we think the most likely scenarios of the wide receiver room are for week one? More likely a Doubs is traded, or that we cut 2 to 3 of Melton, Hardman, Heath, or something else. I think the latter. I wouldn't rule out a Doubs trade entirely, but it does leave you a little thin as like a true X receiver on the outside. And I think you probably want to keep him on this roster for this season. That would be my guess. I think that just is the most simple, most likely scenario, but I wouldn't rule out a trade entirely. I think your most likely is that Doubs is your outside wide receiver, Golden's your outside wide receiver, Reed is your slot, and then Wicks rotates in, with those 4 guys. Savion Williams, you probably bring along a little bit slower. Maybe you have a package for him or 2 packages for him if he's active on game day. And then your other, whoever makes that 6th spot is probably more likely an inactive, unless it's a McCole Hardman and you want him due to being the punt returner, in which case you might have Savion Williams just inactive to start things off and Hardman being your 5th receiver. That's how I kind of seen it going. But I will guess that Golden, Wicks, Reed, and Doubs are going to get the vast majority of the playing time, and you maybe sprinkle in a Savion or whoever the other 6th receiver is a little bit here and there, and special teams value could play a large role in who that player that is actually active on game day as that 5th guy. Piggybacking on that, can you explain the logic behind undrafted free agents? Do you think it's still BPA because we're still out here signing wide receivers? Is it more so finding practice squad guys to replace the ones who won't make it? First of all, a lot of it's just based on who you can get in camp. So you have you're still basing it off of your board of guys that you put together for the draft, right? And then you have your list of players, probably more in a vertical chart. And there's probably a little bit more of an emphasis on if, hey, there's a position that we really would need, like Nasir Stackhouse, for example. That's probably more of a position where you're like, hey, we really need somebody there that could potentially still be a nose tackle. Like, let's go find somebody that can give us that potentially. Off-ball linebacker, you just needed bodies there. So Dumas Johnson is probably somebody that you were like, hey, let's make this a little bit more of a priority if we can. But for the most part, you're just trying to find anyone that you think is super talented and that you think could make a roster, whether it be a practice squad or a 53, and then you figure out the rest later. And you're not banking on any of those guys making a 53. And if you really love somebody, maybe you had like a 4th or 5th round grade on somebody, you're probably going to go a little bit more aggressive and try to get them, even if it takes a bigger signing bonus to go get that guy and get him in. And you're basically getting like another draft pick in that situation. So all depends on the player, the situation, but you might go out and a little bit more aggressively at a position because it's more of a position of need and you're just going to take a couple flyers there, but mostly you're just trying to get the best football players in that you can. Last question. We didn't take a quarterback and no UDFA that I saw. Where do you sit right now in backup quarterback situation? Should we sign a vet? P.S. Thanks for all your draft content. Much appreciated, my friend. You're more than welcome. I will be interested. We'll start with El Gersma at the rookie minicamp to see if he's got anything. There's going to at least be one other quarterback in that rookie minicamp. Whether it's, sure, what do they use? Like Jacob Eason, if I remember correctly. There'll be at least one more guy there. We'll see who that ultimately ends up being. And then, we'll see if they actually sign somebody. They'll probably try out El Gersma first and see if he's worth being that 4th camp arm. If he's not, my guess is they probably start, mini camps and OTAs with the 4th guy, and who that is kind of just remains to be seen. But I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. I don't think they're going to go get a, Carson Wentz or a, Ryan Tannehill or anything crazy like that. But my guess is kind of a younger guy that could come in and maybe compete with Sean Clifford for that number 3 spot. One of the unintended consequences of the draft in a good way is all the interviews that Matt and Goot did this week. It's always cool to get a peek into both of their minds behind the scenes. Totally agree, Go Pack. Anytime you get to, a little bit more behind the scenes with those guys, it's always a fun thing. Feels like the Packers are getting good football players without sacrificing their love of good athletes. I'm here for it. And who is your way too early prediction for the leader in receiving yards, touchdowns? What potential offensive packages have you most excited right now? First of all, yes, it does feel like they're getting good football players without sacrificing any of the height, weight, speed stuff that they usually like. As far as Receiving leader, I'll probably still go with Jaden just because I think he has the most opportunity to play the most snaps as more of that defined role for himself. But could be Golden, could be Doubs, could be Kraft, could be Reed, could be Wicks. Like there's so many different directions that could go, but I'll still take I'll put the money on Jaden Reed if I had to bet right now. Formations, I haven't put too much thought into this yet. I usually do a episode on this before we get into camp or right around there. This is always a fun exercise, but the truth of the matter is you're probably, maybe the 2 tight end set with Musgrave, if he can take a leap this year, but you're probably just picking out your favorite 11 personnel package, right? So Josh Jacobs, Tucker Kraft, probably Golden. I would say Golden, Wicks, Reed would probably be my most excited because I'm hoping Wicks is going to take a step. Golden on the other side is a speed element, Reed in the slot. And then you've got Jacobs and Kraft. You've got a lot of people who can do some really unique things in that offense where you've got your route runner, you've got your speed guy, you've got your gadget slot guy, you've got your Hulk, you've got your running back that can do everything. That's probably just the simplest answer. If you wanted to put Savion Williams out there instead of a Wicks or a Doubs out there instead of a Wicks, there's a lot of fun that you can have with that as well. But I think the most logical one is either Doubs or Wicks on the outside, Reed, Golden, Kraft, and Jacobs. And that's just a lot of offense, a lot of weapons that you can go to in that situation. R. Smith still they keep Jaire. Listen, I get it. How excited are you on the different flavors of pass rushers we got on day 3? Yeah, again, I want to see what they can bring to the table first before I'm going to go super crazy. It's a tough position, and finding true pass rushers is not easy. But I like both of these guys. I like both of them a lot. I think they do bring something different than what you have on the team right now, and you just need those guys to make an impact. I mean, I'm not saying the rookies, but you need the defensive ends to make an impact. A little bit less enthused with what they were able to do from a defensive tackle standpoint. I was hoping for maybe a little bit more energy, a little bit more juice at that spot, but they did get some fun defensive ends. I think Jeff Hafley's going to have a lot of different things that he can do to generate pass rush, but they need to find a way to get there with 4. I'm not going to count on all the rookies for that. So to me, this is still LVN, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt. Those are the 4. As fun as some of these players that they added are, those are the 4 that have to really be the ones that are making the biggest impact. So those are the 4 I'm going to be looking at. Preach. I never understood how you could think he needs to be off the team. He'll only play 9 games, but 7 of 9 will be wins at least. I mean, I don't think you can attribute 7 wins to Jaire Alexander. That's not how I would look at that equation. And if you're only going to play 9 games, then you're looking at paying, almost $2 million per game for Jaire Alexander, which is probably not efficient. I think that's the roster math that you're putting together. Is he the best corner on the team? Yeah. It just is a pure math equation of how many games are you going to get, and is it worth $17.5 million? Unless they restructure, which again, that changes everything. The reporting up until this point there had been no real desire on either side for there to be a restructure. So it was 17.5 million or 0 million. For me, for somebody who's shown you he's going to play 8 games a year, 17.5 million is too much. I think that's a massive cost for 8 games a year. And no, I would not say he's worth 7 wins. If you told me Jaire was worth 7 wins, I mean, give him 30 mil. He's not worth 7 wins. So that's a little bit more of where the complication comes in with trying to figure out, is he worth it or not? What's with all this let Watson go garbage? He might be able to come back on a team-friendly deal. I don't think he and Golden are redundant by any means. Wouldn't they make a fun 1-2 punch? I am not in the camp. I do think Doubs is working on borrowed time. I don't think Romeo Doubs is going to be back in 2026. That one I feel like is a pretty obvious end game here. And like I said, I wouldn't rule out that he's gone this offseason still. I don't think it's likely. I'd say it's like 5% chance, 10% chance, somewhere in that range. 90 to 95% chance that, I'm done with percentages. I'm going to maybe take a timeout, Andy, from percentages this week. But I would say it's most likely that Doubs is back this year, not next year. As far as Watson goes, I think this is a lot more based on how he comes back this year and then what type of contract he's demanding. Remember, he's been hurt all 4 years, fairly significantly, fairly regularly. They are trying to get out of a contract right now with Jaire Alexander because he hasn't stayed healthy enough. And there might be a couple other sprinklings of things that are in there as well, but they've been trying to get out of it because they can't trust him to be healthy. I don't know that there's going to be a huge appetite to sign Christian Watson to a deal, a long-term deal, when he has had all these injury issues as well, and now is going to miss a huge chunk of this year. I kind of talked about it with Justice the other day. There's probably a sweet spot here. If Watson comes back and looks amazing, he probably works his way out of Green Bay. Some other team is probably willing to take a flyer and give him a 3-year, $45 million, mostly guaranteed deal. And Green Bay probably is like, yeah, we're good. Or 3 years, $60 million. I don't know what that ends up being, but Green Bay's probably like, yeah, we're good. You guys can sign him to that deal. We'll take the comp pick. If he's bad or just doesn't look like himself, and, it just is, you're like, oh my goodness, he doesn't look the same anymore. Green Bay's probably like, ooh, we're good. You can go somewhere else. We're good. We're moving on. The sweet spot is probably like, he looks okay. He's coming back from injury. Doesn't quite look like himself yet. He looks fine. And it makes sense for both sides from Christian's point of view to be like, let's get a 1-year deal done with Green Bay, 7-8 mil, somewhere in that range. I can go out and prove that I'm healthy, have a great year, and then cash in the year after that. And for Green Bay, it's like, yeah, we'll take Christian back for 1 year, 7 mil, somewhere in that range. And we'll take him on that 1-year deal. Hopefully he can stay healthy. And then if he gets a big contract somewhere else after that, great. But we'll take him back for a year. So that to me is the sort of thin line that you're working with. You could take a 1-year, $7 million, $8 million deal from another team too. That's within the realm of possibility. But certainly when you draft 2 wide receivers, it creates a little bit more flexibility to move on from players. We've seen that in the past, but I wouldn't rule out Watson. I think it's a little easier to see Dobbs' exit around the corner. Have you gotten to look at Warren Brinson? If so, what do you think of him? I've watched him. I haven't watched him in the deep dive sense yet. So we'll get to the deep dive. I don't know, probably this weekend, would it be? But I'm more looking forward to watching him in greater detail. But didn't love what I saw. If you're drafting to the flashes, meaning if you're just taking the high points and forget everything else, because now we know he can do it, and now we just need to make that more consistent. You like what you see. Modern day defensive tackle that can play a little of the 1, little of the 3, isn't just going to be this big lumbering 330-pound guy, but is good enough against the run where he can hold up at the point of attack, but also get into the backfield a little bit. Good athlete, a little bit of juice, can penetrate into the backfield, which we know Jeff Hafley wants in this defense. So you can see the vision, no question about it. Consistency, that was the bigger issue. There's a reason why somebody with all the traits, all the talent, University of Georgia, Bulldog, everything like that was available here. Just didn't ever quite put it together consistently, but the flashes are definitely there. So you just hope that you can put that together a little bit more consistently in the NFL. Secondary is better with Jai in it. The team is better with him on it. I respect opposing opinions on this. That's just mine, though. Totally fair, R. Smith. Say hypothetically that nasty 220-plus pound corner makes the 53-man roster. How would they use him? I want to see at minicamp this week, or even when we hear the official free agent signings, I want to see what position he's listed at. That'll tell us everything. I have no idea at the moment. I don't think it's going to be corner. I think it's going to be either safety or linebacker, but let's see. Let's see where he's listed. I don't think it's going to be corner, though. But we'll know once he actually officially gets signed and what that position next to his name is. How do you see this defense if Jaire stays? How many games am I getting? If I'm getting 4, no different. If I'm getting 8, slightly different. If I'm getting 17, oh, hell yeah. Sign me the hell up. You're getting a really good corner that can cover, that can give you something that you don't have, that can give you some more unique matchups if you can work them out that way. So this, again, is all dependent upon how much of Jaire do I get. History would say 8 games. Okay. I get 8 games of a really good corner out there. Certainly helps. Probably not worth $17.5 million, but it doesn't hurt. If I get more than that, yeah, you start really jumping up this defense. It looks really good on paper. That's the big question. How much is it worth for how many games you're going to get? Like I've said all along, my stance has never changed. This is just a math problem. Again, barring the fact that there's something there between the two sides that's not reconcilable, which again, nothing's been reported there. We don't know that that's the case. Seems like there's frustration on both sides, but the big thing to me here is just this overarching math equation of how much are you going to pay him for how much you can expect him to play. Insert it into the algorithm, into the formula, whatever, and go from there. If they can come to a conclusion on what makes sense for both sides, I would love that to be the case. Bucks down 1, 3 minutes, 48 seconds left in Indiana. Season on the line. See if Milwaukee can pull it through. Domofsky with the smoke screen. I always thought it was stupid for the front office to telegraph the fact that Ja was going to get cut. Tanks his trade value. So you're saying this, because I think this could be a smoke screen too of like, hey, we're going to keep him. Let's add that trade value back up. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine at this point. Do you think Baron Sorrell becomes the third rusher here in 2025? Let's again, don't want to hype up any of these draft picks too much before they come to Green Bay and start seeing what they can be, right? My guess is he's a rotational guy, whether that's the third, the fourth, or the fifth. That's going to be up to camp. That's going to be up to guys like Brenton Cox and Igbare, LVN, Rashawn we know is going to start, but how the rest of the players sort of stack up after Rashawn. If you to me, any of these guys outside of probably Oliver, like Oliver can't win the number 2 job because he's not going to be able to hold up at the point of attack against the run. But if you told me that the starter opposite Rashawn this year was Enigbare, was LVN, was Sorrell, was, Brenton Cox, sure, I could believe that. If you told me any of those guys was like the 4th guy, I could believe that. I don't think LVN's going to get down to like 5th, but for the most part, I could see this rotation going in a variety of different ways. But Rashawn will be the one, then go get it. Let's see who steps up. I think everyone else is in that competition besides, again, maybe Oliver because he can't be a full-time guy. Trey Amos or Anthony Belton, which would you have preferred? Let me finish my deep dive up of Belton today, and then I'll answer that maybe. But in the moment, when you're looking at the draft board, I would have said, who should they take here, Belton or Amos? I probably would have said Amos. I will tell you this. Offensive line is more important than corner. It's a more valuable position, and you can never have enough of those guys. And I'm really excited about what I think Belton can potentially bring to this team. So I think this is one very much that's close and in the eye of the beholder. And if you say Amos, totally get it. Totally understand it. Probably would make more of an impact for Green Bay in the here and the now. Could totally understand that selection. If you say Belton, because offensive line is more important, can be a little bit of a mauler on the interior, and there's a big upside there for him as well. I mean, listen, just to be totally clear on this, some of the really unbelievable corners this offseason, right? So some of the best corners, Byron Murphy went for what? 18 to 20 million, right? If I want to remember correctly, the best corners on the market were going in that 18 to 20 million range. A completely average, nondescript, okay left tackle in Dan Moore goes for 20 million. If I had to bet you right now, which player probably gets more on the open market in 4 seasons, if they both become free agents, Belton probably gets, if they're both good, right? If they're both even okay. If Amos is good, if Amos is great and Belton's okay, Belton might get 20 million on the open market, more than at that time, right? Because that's 4 years from now. Belton probably gets a huge contract on the open market, and Amos probably gets, the same, even if he's better. So you have to look at this not just in the mind of like, who's the better player? You have to take positional value into the consideration as well. And right now we're seeing, like, there hasn't been an appetite for a Jalen Ramsey. There hasn't been an appetite for a Jaire Alexander for some of these teams to trade for these guys. We saw the cornerback market. There was the top of it. That was, again, 18 mil per year. A crappy tackle went for 20 mil per year. No disrespect to Dan Moore. Go get that money. And he's not crappy. He's an average tackle, right? But that matters. That very much matters. And so you have to take that into consideration as well. Could, again, understand an argument for either, but I have no issue with them taking Belton at that spot over Amos or over anyone else. Go get your guy. Let's see what he can become. I like the tape that I've watched so far. Bucks up 1 minute 38 left. I might have to put this on here in the, see if I can throw this up. All right. I'm not going to throw it obviously up. Volume down. Just have to throw it to the side here. Keep an eye on this game because that is a clutch situation. Turning the ring light off so I can kind of see this on the side. All right. Turn the volume down. Now we got the Pacers with the rebound. Oh, this is highlights? I don't want highlights. I want the game. Oh, is it the game on TNT? Oh, it's on TNT. No, it's NBA TV? That doesn't do me any good. Oh, Bucks up 4 now with 119. All right. So I can do FanDuel Sports, right? I don't know. What is it called? I don't know. It doesn't matter. All right. Bucks are winning. That's all I care about. Bucks up 4 minute 19 left. All right. Back to questions. Back to what's important. Big Baby Blue. I really appreciate that you keep the content coming for junkies like me that don't know how to stop thinking about the Packers for the summer. Cheers. 365, baby. 365 no matter what. Appreciate that, Big Bay Blue. I think with the two new big bodies on the line, plus an already really good run game, plus Marshawn Lloyd, plus two new offensive weapons, plus healthy Jordan Love, it put the draft free agency into perspective for me. Yeah, go score those points. You've got a very talented play caller and play designer in Matt LaFleur. You've got a really good quarterback, a really good running back. Your offensive line got better. Musgrave is now healthy. Lloyd's coming back. You'll have injuries too. Some of that stuff will, not look as good, come November, December because of injuries. But right now, it really looks like on paper that you have everything that you need to be a very good, very talented offense and very productive offense in 2025 and beyond. Agreed, Craig. Very intrigued by the offense as well. Pats released their 10-year Super Bowl winning long snapper. Could the Packers be in play? I don't think so. I think they've kind of settled on Orzik. And last year, the Orzik, Whalen, McManus trio worked well together. So I think they probably just stay as is. But crazier things have happened. But I don't think they're long snapper shopping at the moment. Think I answered this right? Oh, yes, we did. All right. Aaron, hey, Andy, I had a blast Thursday night at the draft. Love my Green Bay Packers, and the Bears still suck. Love that for you, Aaron. Glad you had a ton of fun. Packers have the benefit of playing a third-place schedule this year. How do you think that plays into the narrative of this upcoming season? What our expectations should be for this team? I don't think at all. And if you look at the schedule, it's like the hardest third-place schedule that you could possibly imagine. They've got tough conferences that they're playing against. So, yeah, I don't think it changes it. And you never know what the schedule is actually going to be like, right? Some teams are going to be better than you think. Some are going to be worse. Last year, you were super concerned about Miami and San Francisco. By the time you played them, they were, shells of themselves. So you just got to play the team that's in front of you. And you worry about being the best version of the Green Bay Packers that you can be. And you let the schedule fall where it may. You're cognizant of the division and where that's trending and, those sort of things. But I don't think the schedule plays a part in any of their planning other than their offseason, scouting reports and things like that for those teams that they're playing against. Ooh, plus and one for Giannis. All right. Love it. Do I get my Luigi's Pizza if Jaire stays, sir? Just kidding. We'll see what happens. No, but I will absolutely make that donation to, what did I say? Make-A-Wish? Yeah, Make-A-Wish. No, I said, Make-A-Wish. Which wide receiver are you most excited about from this draft? From the Packers? Golden. I mean, no disrespect to Savion Williams, but yeah, he was a first round pick for a reason. Golden is the one from a Packers standpoint that I'm most excited about. In the draft, I mean, Golden's up there. I'm certainly excited to see what Travis Hunter can do. Trey Harris is a guy I'm really high on. Jack Bash is a guy I was really high on. So I'm excited to see what some of these guys can do. But no, I'm for the Packers, definitely Golden. Do you think we could see Doubs request a trade at any point this year? I don't think it's impossible, but until we see something that there's any hint of that, a request or the Packers being willing to trade him, I can't quite get there. I think this is similar with the argument most people are making with Ja of like, hey, you're just better with him. That you can kind of pretty much make that argument with Doubs. And Doubs is going to hit the free agent market. Green Bay's not going to sign him back. If I'm Doubs, I'm more intent on just having the best season I can possibly have this year and going out and getting a big contract next year. That's what I'd be working on if I was Doubs. Golden basically never faced man coverage playing for Texas. Did he face it more in the Houston tape? And how did he do? No, he played mostly. I don't know that I tracked specifically man zone. I was more watching like what, he was bringing to the table and all of his traits. So that's more what I'm focused on is traits-based stuff when I'm watching tape, when I'm watching it for prospect. Man zone or things like that, when you're like grading what they actually graded on the play is more of when they're, in season. So this is more, I'm just looking at pure trait stuff, but I don't have a ton of concern about Golden against man. And also we're just seeing less and less and less man-to-man coverage in the NFL. And you should be able to use Golden on a bunch of man beaters in that situation. Like if you want to go man and Green Bay can stack stuff up and Golden can just run away from you in bunch formations, like he should be a player that helps a lot in those situations as well. We got a tie game. Again, I might be delayed here, but tie game 103-103. 10 seconds left. All right. Let me see if I can pull this up here. I don't know if I'm going to get it in time. Oh, no, all right. We're totally screwed here. All right. Eric Dem's going to have to Keep me posted here. Got a tight game. Bucks have the ball, 10.1 seconds left. At least according to ESPN. All right. Is it fair to have our expectations for Golden to be in the same tier of players like Zay Flowers and Olave? Sure. If you're taking a receiver that high, I think that's a fair expectation to have. I don't think that's like Flowers was so good. So yeah, but I think that's a fair tier to put him in. I think it's a very fair tier to put him in. Bold prediction, Stackhouse becomes a 25-30 snap a game player halfway through year 2 and becomes the next Snacks Harrison. It's very bold. Very, very bold. I do not see it. Just a little that I've watched, I do not see it that way. But I want to watch watch more tape of him and do a little bit more of a deep dive on him before I make I will go out on a limb and say he does not become Max Harrison. But listen, if he can be a value add for this team, that'd be a huge get. Mike, thank you so much for being a member. Love your draft coverage this season. I appreciate that a ton. So we go to OT here. Giannis misses the shot. Overtime. What more could you possibly want? Missed opportunity there for the Bucks. They should have won this game in regulation. Live odds. Indiana's now. That can't be right. Can't be 7.5 favorites in real time. But either way, bummer that they couldn't finish that off in regulation. I think we got a steal in Stackhouse from Georgia, an undrafted free agent. Watched 2 Georgia games last year, and it reminds me of TJ Slayton. That's what Ross said. Like I said, I want to watch him a little bit more to kind of get a feel of exactly what he can bring to this team. The first stuff I watched was not super encouraging, but like I said, I want to watch a little bit more of him. Thank you for the super chat, though, Mike. Love Doubs. Hope he's not gone. He probably is. He's probably here this year, but this might be the last year of Romeo. And again, that's what I would kind of predict in this situation. With the addition of some tweener guys like Simmons and Oliver, what's a potential crazy 3rd and long dime package you'd like to see? Well, I don't think Simmons plays in a crazy dime situation because you only got one linebacker on the field and you want Cooper out there, right? So, I guess you could do like a 3-2, but I'm probably just going with 4 rushers. I'm probably just going. You could do an Oliver and Gary at the edges, Devontae and. Maybe you could try LVN or I'd probably just go like a Carl Brooks or someone on the interior and let him get to the quarterback, probably edge at my linebacker spot. And then, or maybe I go a 3-2-5. Maybe I go Devontae on the interior with Gary and I don't know. I'm hoping LVN, but maybe you could go an Oliver on the edge and then probably Quay and Cooper as my linebackers. And then I'd probably go, Bullard and Hobbs in the slot with, we'll say Nixon and Jaire or Nixon and Valentine, depending on if Jaire's back or not on the outside. And then probably just Williams and McKinney at safety. So I don't think you get too creative with that stuff, but I think the beautiful thing overall is that Green Bay's got some options in there really on their entire defense this year. Really excited about Sorrell. He had a good production at Texas, but disappeared sometimes in a starter role. Hoping that bringing him in a more rotational role where he's more fresh. Your opinion? Yeah, I think that absolutely could be the case. And I think he checks all the boxes. He was productive, big time school, great character, no injury issues, high end athlete, just really good value in the 4th round. But I think he projects as more of a rotational edge defender, but that's exactly what you're getting him as. I think there's good value there for Green Bay, and let's see how we can develop. A lot of talent there with Searle. Andy out here describing the cap, how Kyle Reese described the Terminator. Sure. I've never watched Terminator. I've never seen any of the Terminator movies. That's one I could probably get made fun of for. Never seen any of the Godfather movies. What's some other ones that are very like that I've never seen? Never seen any Aliens. Never seen any Jason or Freddy, Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Never seen any of the Saw movies. Guess what I watched? A lot of football tape. That's what I get to watch. You guys get to see tape, movie tape. I get to see football tape. Also, in my recollection, they've never announced the exact schedule date in the way that they did in the draft this year, just a window of when it could be, or is my memory incorrect? Ben, I will be totally honest with you. The thing I care about the very least on the NFL calendar is the schedule release date. I already know who they're going to play. I already know I'm going to be watching all the games, covering all the games. To me, what order they play, home, away, I always, you guys know, I look at the, net rest days that they have in between. And if there's any big swings where like East Coast to West Coast, any international travel, I nerd out about that stuff. That's where I care about it. From a competitive advantage or disadvantage standpoint, Is there anything that helps or hurts Green Bay? That's what I look at. The rest is I'm going to be watching all the games anyway. I'm going to be covering all the games anyway. I know who they're playing already. I don't care about the order too much, other than, again, competitive advantage, disadvantage. But so my answer, Ben, is I don't recall, because I usually don't really care all that much. Craig, I think with the two new big bodies on the line, plus an already really good run game, plus Marshawn Lloyd, plus two new offensive weapons, healthy Jordan Love, I'm intrigued what this offense can be. Sorry I didn't get to your question earlier, but yes, obviously we covered that earlier in your question that we went through. W for the Jaire truthers? Not yet. Not yet. Be careful. Be very careful. I still think that this could be a smokescreen as well, where they're like, yeah, let's work things out. Hint, hint. So some other team makes a trade. Listen, don't listen to me at this point, but I still think it's more likely that he's not on the team, still there. Clearly, some things have changed. We have some new information, but I wouldn't quite get to the point yet of, oh, now he's back. As Rob said on the very last line of his deal, all things are still on the table. Release, trade, or return. Up until that tweet, it really felt like release or trade. Now it does feel like there's a chance. I just wouldn't put it. Don't be like me. Don't be an idiot. Don't put it in any sort of percentage chance standpoint. But again, if it's me, I'm still saying I think there's a real strong chance that he's still not back. Andy, just wanted to thank you for all your fan interaction you provide us. Great to meet you at the live Q&A after the draft. Michael, thank you so much for being there. It was great to meet you as well. Was really overwhelmed by people showing out to the live events. The Thursday or the Wednesday one was, incredible. I don't know how many people we ended up having there, but there's a lot of people. It was a ton of fun. Saturday was a little bit more of we probably had 40 people there throughout the course of the night. So a little bit more small, but that was awesome too, just to kind of get to meet you guys a little bit more in person, do a little bit more meet and greet as well. But just overwhelmed through the course of the weekend of that 1,800 people showing up to the live Q&As. It was really, really cool. So thank you unbelievably for all the support. Gary Trent Jr. hits a big three. Bucks now 54% likelihood to win. Bucks just got a defensive rebound. Just want something to happen and be done with the job. Ben, I am right there with you, my friend. Jaire doesn't stay. Do you think the Packers will pick up Kendall Fuller or Rasul Douglas? I do not. I do not think they would be in the conversation, but again, crazier things have happened. Ben says nope and nope. Bucks were leading by 13 at one point. I'm not watching, not going to watch. Totally fair, Ben. Autumn, I got a notification to, Gary Trent 3, up 3, 2:51 left. Halliburton misses a shot. Naismith rebound. Naismith misses shot. 2:32 left. Naismith rebound again. Halliburton misses a 3. Giannis rebound. All right, let's go. I got a notification of something of most on YouTube. It was common poster or something like that. Or you were on the top of the list of people who post on YouTube the most often or something like that. So thank you a ton for that. Thank you for all the support. Do you think Hafley had a bigger say in these new defensive players? They just seem out of the ordinary in size and speed. I think Hafley very much has a say in what these defensive players bring to the team. And I think he probably said, listen, Green Bay only had so much time this past year to kind of bring in players that were specifically for Hafley's defense. The ones that they got, if you remember last year, think of the players that were really great fits. Gary Trent, another 3. Woo! Up by 6. Think of the players that were really great fits for the defense last year. Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Edgerrin Cooper. What did they have in common? They were all brought to the team specifically for Jeff Hafley's defense. The players who struggled last year were predominantly players who were returning from carryovers, right? Players that were brought in for either Joe Barry or even Mike Pettine's defense in the case of Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary. So I think you are seeing these players, Jeff Hafley have an influence, but you're seeing players that were successful really be brought in specifically for that defense. And now I think you've got more of them, which I think is obviously going to be a huge win, hopefully moving forward. I think Belton takes Rasheed Walker's spot at left tackle and move Morgan to guard. Other way around. I think Morgan stays at left tackle. I think Belton battles with Sean Ryan at guard. I think you could see a rotation if things go a certain way where you got Morgan and Rasheed maybe rotating a little bit at left tackle, and then maybe Belton and Sean Ryan rotating at right guard. And I think there's a chance if things go according to plan that your future offensive line is Morgan, Banks, Jenkins, Belton, Tom in 2026. Really love the roster right now. Excited for reports from camp this weekend. Yeah, we haven't got confirmation on mini camp times yet, but unless I have it in my inbox now, I do not. So yeah, hopefully getting those soon as to exactly when those are, but very excited to be out there at mini camp again. Cannot freaking wait. Who will be the third tight end? Do you think seems like it's up in the air? Yeah, I think that could go in a lot of different directions, and I could see them still adding somebody to that room as well. But I would say that it's probably between Fitzpatrick and Sims at the moment. But yeah, I'm hoping it's Sims. I really liked him as a kind of UDFA and guy that they rotated in the last couple of years, but he needs to take a step this offseason for sure. Best cornerback on the team, very questionable. For Jaire, when he's healthy, I don't think that's questionable. I think Jaire is clearly the best cover corner on the team. Maybe best overall corner, because of tackling and run defense, some things like that you could potentially make a little bit more of an argument for. But to me, he's very clearly the best cover corner on the team when he's healthy. We got a 1-point game, 1 minute, 19 seconds left. That 6-minute lead evaporated very quick. Everyone's a concussion away from retirement. I've said that before. I'll say it again. Everyone's one head hit away from retirement. We don't know where Doubs is at. Doubs, how many concussions, guys, do you think Brett had? Brett probably had 2 concussions that were far worse than anything Doubs has had up until this point at this stage of his career, and played till he was like 42. I'm not, to be very clear, I'm not trying to make light of CTE here or concussions. I think it's a serious issue. I think the league needs to continue to step in and intervene and try to protect these players as much as possible. Tua's had far more concussion issues than Romeo Doubs has had, and he's still in the league. Doubs could be 4 concussions away. He could be 1 concussion away. Every player is one big helmet-to-helmet hit away from potentially having a career-ending injury. So is Doubs maybe a little bit more susceptible at this point? Probably. Maybe. I don't know. But clearly Green Bay has the best pulse on that. Romeo Doubs is the best pulse on that. And I think it's foolhardy to say that we know for sure that he's any more likely to be a 1 concussion away than any of these other guys who've also had a variety of concussions in their careers. Watson is going to miss half the season and lose a step. 9 without speed is just a guy. Again, maybe, but I don't think we can say that with certainty either. I think he'll probably be a little bit of maybe different when he comes back, but it's not certainty. Adrian Peterson's come back unbelievable. Rashawn Gary made it back from his ACL and looked like Rashawn Gary. He hit a wall later. He hit a wall like midway through the year, but when he first came back, man, he looked great. He looked phenomenal. So they do pretty damn good work right now, unless it's a Bakhtiari ACL, which hopefully nobody ever has to deal with any of the stuff that Bakhtiari went through ever again. But for the most part, they do pretty great work with this stuff, and these guys usually come back pretty healthy. Might be wrong, but if Watson is out all year, don't we get him for 1 more year? Correct. But I don't think there's any chance that he's out for the entirety of the season where his contract would toll and you get him for all next year as well. Which draft pick makes the most impact next season? And you can't say Matthew Golden. I'll say, this is interesting. I can't say Golden. Who do I want to go with here? I could make an argument for Oliver. I don't think it's going to be Brinson. I'll go. This is probably chalk at this point, but I'll go Baron Sorrell. I just think he has the most likely, clear, and obvious path to playing time. I think Savion Williams could be some, more of a project. You're certainly expecting Belton to, at the very best, compete, but even in a crazy scenario, unless there's injuries, he's probably rotating at guard. So I would say that it's probably Sorrell has the biggest opportunity. If you said Oliver, I could believe it. If you said, what the 2nd or 3rd round picks, I could believe that as well, but I'll go Barron at this point. What kind of year would Rashid or Ryan have to get a second contract in Green Bay? Yeah, I think both of them have opportunities. I don't think both of them can get contracts. You can pay one of them, but if Rashid just goes out and plays great, or Ryan goes out and plays great, they have every right to earn a contract in Green Bay as well. Green Bay might want to avoid that, but teams are not in the habit right now of letting good teams go. There's always mechanisms to keep those players. So if either go out and show that they're legitimately a really good player and show consistency all throughout the year and just go out and dominate, both of them can have. So I think you're looking at you don't have to have a Pro Bowl season, but you need to have 2 very consistently good seasons from both of them in order to kind of earn that contract. I think it's more likely Sheed's back, but both of them have every right to go out and earn that contract. 17 offensive linemen under contract. Rashid and Ryan will be gone, and we'll gladly take those 3rd and 4th round comp picks. That's certainly the way that it trends. But again, you don't let great players out the door. And if they can go out and show that they're great players, then you have that conversation at that time. Just like Morgan isn't a bust, but we can't pay 4 to 5. Just hope Morgan isn't a bust. But yeah, you don't want to be in that situation, Mike. But if they earn it and they deserve it, and you get to a point where like you really like them as players and they fit great, and they, you get them back, you figure out the contracts and you figure out the rest later. But it certainly would seem to be more likely to trend in that situation. The 1 year we thought playing the NFC East was going to be a cakewalk, and yeah, play schedule doesn't matter as much in the league this year. Yeah, it's tough out there. Craig, super kind of you there. This is for all the draft content. Thanks, Andy, and Go Pack Go. Very, very kind of you. Thanks so much, Craig. Oscar, has there been a moment in Packers history where you felt as devastated as I did watching Dame's Achilles snap the other night? Yeah. Obviously, the NFC Championship to Seattle was devastating. Terrell Owens catching the ball in the end zone was devastating. Freddie Mitchell catching 4th and 26 and losing that game was devastating. Those were moments. And then from an injury standpoint, it didn't end up being that way. But in the moment when Aaron looked like he was going to be down week 1 against Chicago that year, that was brutal. I mean, that looked like your whole season was over in one fell swoop. Now, it didn't end up being that way, but in the moment, it felt like, oh, great, we're losing week 1 to the Bears and Aaron's done for the year. And quite frankly, end of last game as well, or of week 1 last year, where Jordan goes down and you're thinking, oh, his season might be done. You're just kicking off the Jordan Love era, and now he's going to tear his ACL in week 1. Like, there were definitely those moments where it felt that way. Now, thankfully, neither of those moments ended up that way, but in the moment, you had that feeling for sure. Also, I will say this. As much as the Dame thing sucks, no question about it, it is a nightmare for so many different reasons. At no point, at any point in time, did I think this Bucks team had championship aspirations. I mean, even if Dame and Giannis got past Indiana, no chance to me they're getting past New York, Cleveland, Boston, whomever. And even if it gets to that point, even less chance they're getting past the Thunder, whoever, is the winner in the West. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, it blows, but this was not a team that I thought that, you cut the championship aspirations out from underneath it, which that would have been far more devastating if like the Bucks were the 1 seed in the East and clearly trending towards being the best team and having a real chance at winning a championship, and this happened, then I would have been guts on the ground, but in this situation, they got an and 1. This game is this is a 1-point game. How is this a 1-point game? This was over. Oh my goodness. The Bucks, they're always going to buck. But no, that's the only thing that's not a saving grace, but that makes it a little bit less of a kick in the nuts. Andy, you're killing me with these Bucks updates. You're like 45 seconds ahead of me. Sorry, Love and Football. My apologies. I just did another one though. Would you do an episode or series in that dead period in June, July, where you go and grade the draft picks plays from last season? Nope. Because it doesn't matter. Whatever they graded in college does not carry over. I will absolutely go, and Sam Amick tweets, the Bucks are a tough watch. Yes, Sam, they are a very tough watch. I will absolutely be going and grading this past year from the free agent signings. That is the big one. So I will be doing that at some point. Yeah, we're past that now, obviously, Matthew, but this is crazy that it's still going on. Which players do you see having the most pressure on them to perform this year, or position group? I mean, you could go in so many different directions with players. I mean, I think there's pressure on Jordan. There's obviously any fringe roster guys have a ton of pressure on them. There's certainly pressure, I think, on Romeo to some extent with all the new receivers that they added and, him being in a contract year. Rasheed Walker, Sean Ryan, there's certainly some pressure there. LVN, a lot of pressure that he's under. Deontay Wyatt, I think some level of pressure depending on if he gets a huge contract before the season or not. Let's see. I think Nixon, to some extent, has a little bit of pressure now that he's the guy out there. Valentine, I think, is under some real pressure to see if he can be of anything at this point. So yeah, I think there's a variety of different guys that have pressure, but position groups, pass rush. I just think the pass rush has to be able to be better this year. That's how I would put it. How do you feel about 97 from Georgia as a UDFA? I like the run D he could potentially provide. Yeah. So Stackhouse, again, didn't love what I saw at first glance, but I didn't get into too much of his tape as of yet. So I'll break him down more at some point. Hey, he's going to have every opportunity. That starter spot opposite across from Rashawn Gary and how many snaps each of these guys play is totally up for grabs. Brian Cox has every right to go and earn it. Gary Trent just lost a turnover up by 1. Oh my God. Oh my God. What a nightmare of a team. Um, yeah, another turn. Unbelievable. Yeah, but you can't know competitive advantage, disadvantage without knowing the schedule. So it's important. Uh, yeah, again, I don't put too much stock into the schedule because again, you don't know what teams are going to look like when you actually play them. Halliburton makes it. They lost. Oh my God. Oh my God. How did they blow that game? That is the most unbelievable Bucks way of losing ever. Burn it to the ground. Holy crap. Holy crap. I like Sims too. I thought tight end was a sneaky draft need. Yeah, I could have easily seen them going there if the right player fell to them. I just don't think they were ever really in a position to grab a tight end. No, I mean, unless you want to bring Mercedes back, you could bring Mercedes back at any point. I'd say Belton or the first edge rusher pick. Yeah, I would go again with Barron as well. Giannis had 30 and 20 and they lost. What a joke. Sorrell, correct. Drafting more good offensive linemen helps keep the cost of the 4 to 5 offensive line players at 15 to 25 million or less. Correct. Kevin O'Connor, what a disgusting way for Milwaukee season to end. It's the most appropriate way for Milwaukee season to end. D-box ACL tear was devastating too, especially the timing. Yeah. Ugh. Hate it. What are your thoughts on the schedule this year? Any early record predictions? No, I still expect this to be like a 10-7 base, give or take 2 games. Like that's kind of my baseline for them. 10-7. If things go poorly, they're probably 8-9. If things go well, they're probably 12-5. Think 10-7 baseline, give or take 2 games, one way or the other. That'd be especially in a conference like, or a division like the NFC North. I think that's a fair assessment. I'd be pretty stunned if they did better than 12-5. I'd be pretty stunned if they did worse than 8-9, barring catastrophic injuries, of course. So 10-7, give or take 2 games as of right now. All right, friends, looks like that's all the questions that we got. I'm going to go take a look at how Milwaukee choked away this game in the series. Not again that it matters because they were going to lose anyway, but most Milwaukee way ever. Truth is, if they won this, they wouldn't lose the next. They would have lost. Yeah, for sure. I'm not losing sleep over it. It was time to just rip the Band-Aid and just be done with this season. We don't need a catastrophic injury to Giannis, so just get it done with. I was cheering for him, obviously, but yeah, ready for this season to be done for sure. All right, friends, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for all the memberships, the kind words, the likes, the views, all of it. Cannot thank you guys enough. I'll see you guys all very, very soon. Happy hour this Friday, 3 p.m. Obviously, lots more deep dives coming out. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.